Welcome to the VOD cell. Thank you for your time. This commentary is pertaining to documents revealed pertaining to the Idaho forest student murders. Um, no one knew Brian Kohberger. There's been no information pertaining to Mr. Kohberger and the victims. There was a connection. I'm assuming that's possibly the pings at the house that showed up in his data, but there's no motive to whom his target was pertaining to the young ladies at the house, how he came to find this house, these inhabitants of the house. You're going to hear information pertaining to someone allegedly stalking Kaylee, someone being on the property, the back of the house. Don't know who that person was, if it was Mr. Kohberger or somebody else, just poking, lurking around. But he wiped his devices clean. So that means there's more to the story that we possibly will never uncover. Because many people feel like there's a motive. As I've said before, in the end, it doesn't really matter what the motive is because the man is sick. He's a psychopath. So whatever motive you think there was, it doesn't matter. He had no business stalking these kids, following the kids, and or stalking the house and breaking in and killing these kids. News Nation is the source of this information. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BeganJu129 Cash App, stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. The link is in the chat if you would like to come on the panel to give your opinion pertaining to this information. I will try to play a little bit of this news broadcast with Miss Banfield and Mr. Brian in.
And the details from the investigation have started to drop. And before I even do that, I want to tell you right now at 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain Time, that guy has been transferred to the state penitentiary. That's where he will be laying his head tonight on a dank pillow on a 1-inch mattress at the state pen in PC, protective custody. The chances that he is going through processing right now, as we speak, are 100%. And here are some of the things that are happening to Brian Kohberger. He is at the initial reception housing. He will be issued his brand new inmate number tonight. He will have a fresh mugshot taken. He'll be strip searched. Maybe he'll be given a shower. He'll be given an ID band as the newest inmate at the state penitentiary in Idaho, and he'll get some brand new clothes. The kind of clothes he better get used to liking, because he's going to wear state penitentiary jumpsuits and prison garb for the rest of his natural life, however long that life may be. He's only 30, so 60 years, or maybe a couple years, given the pension for prison justice that so many inmates have had in the past. So there you go. They move fast in Idaho, and they get you to the state pen. It can take upwards of like days or weeks, but not for that guy. That guy went tonight. So let me tell you about some of the things today, because we knew there would be emotional statements made by the victims who are so impacted by his horrendous crimes. We had no idea how profound they would be, how eloquent they would be, how much we would learn today. We had no idea the prosecutor would cry. We had no idea the judge would choke up. Well, scathing comments came from the judge, snake-like, about Brian Kohberger. What we thought we'd learn, nothing from him. He refused to talk. But 2 years, 8 months, and 8 days since he took those 4 innocent kids from us, he learned his fate, and he will disappear. Here's the problem. When he doesn't speak, and we learn so little from the police because, as it turns out, they know so little. It is really disconcerting as a fellow citizen. The fact that we discovered police today had no connection. They could find nothing between Brian Kohberger and 1122 King Road. Why? Why those 4 kids and the other 2 who survived? Why? They found nothing. They found no connection. They found no target. Does that mean nothing existed? Or does that mean he was just good at covering his tracks? Because we did learn he wiped clean his laptop. He wiped clean many of his electronics, not all of them. We learned enough about his purchasing a K-bar knife and a sheath and a replacement plan, but we did not learn why these 4. We did not learn if one of these 4 was a target. So anything you've heard or read that suggests Maddie was a target or Kaylee is a target, it's not true. The cops said it today. They couldn't find the motive. They did find a connection to 1122 King Road. They just don't know why. That might be the most confounding thing of all today. Apart from the fact that he stood like a robot, staring into the eyes of people whose lives have been shattered. Didn't show a thing. Didn't break a sweat. Showed nothing. Absolutely nothing. And here's why it's so frustrating. And this is me talking. Every time there's a criminal who does something so out of the norm, like the Ted Bundys of the world, we learn something. We learn how to protect ourselves in the flock. After Ted Bundy put on a cast and limped around grocery stores asking women to help him put groceries in the back of his car, we learned not to help people. We learned, watch it. These people are wolves in sheep's clothing. When Clifford Olson killed at least 11 hitchhikers in Canada, we learned stop hitchhiking. It's dangerous. We used to do it all through the 70s and 80s, not after Clifford Olson. BTK, killing people left, right, and center, and he was a scout leader and a church elder. It taught us you can't even trust the ones who look like they're trustworthy. But with Brian Kohberger, what did we learn? How are we supposed to protect ourselves from these new age monsters? We learned nothing about why he came after these 4. I feel like I can't do anything different today than I did yesterday based on this murderous, heinous beast and his actions. I can't recognize the next one. We did get a big, big dump of police files tonight. I'm going to read you a couple of quotes from the Moscow Police Department because they are starting to release the investigative product. Now we're learning a lot more about what they found, especially at 1122 King Road. This is what one of the responding officers found when it came to Xana and Ethan. Quote, I looked inside the bedroom. Xana was laying and it was obvious an intense struggle had occurred. Xana was obviously deceased. There was blood smeared on various items in the room and all over the floor. There was blood cast off on the walls in various places, including above Xana's body. Xana was on her back on the floor in the center of the room with her head towards the west. Xana was in her underwear and a long-sleeved gray shirt. Both her shirt and underwear were covered in blood. Xana's face and body was covered in dried blood. I could see what appeared to be defensive knife wounds on Xana's hands. There was a deep gash on Xana's left hand between her pointer finger and her thumb.
Oh, stop right there. Naturally, there would have been more light in the room, in the house. I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm not even going to assume. Let's say there was more light in the house when the cops arrived. For him to say, when I stood at the door, I could see there was a struggle and that this young lady was deceased. Now, go back hours beforehand, the house would have been dark, assumingly. When Dylan came out of that hallway into that open space and past Xana lying on the floor, Xana's head was to the wall, her feet towards the door, lying flat on her back. Dylan, did you not see anything resembling blood when this young lady was lying on the floor? Just asking. Because as I said before, all this is very bizarre to me, still to this day, with all this new information coming out, this girl passing Xana, lying on the floor, dead. Ethan's in that room, dead. And she didn't think to say, let me go and see why is this girl lying on this floor. So now when you're listening to this information of what was seen in the room, possibly at the time when Dylan saw her, it was dark. She didn't see blood on the victim. That's all I want to know. Did you see blood on the victim? Or you just stepped out hurriedly into that open space, that living area, and just saw her feet pointing towards the door and just assumed she was inebriated or passed out? Many will still say, why didn't you go check on her? Just to say, hey, what's going on? You okay? You all right? I'm assuming you knew that Ethan was there, because I'm assuming maybe his car was in the driveway. I'm not really sure if he drove or he walked over. See, those are things that we don't know. So everything's an assumption at this point, still in the game. But once again, it's still, I'm just trying to figure out really what was the relationship between these people, because I have to ask those questions, because I'm an outsider looking in. I'm trying to make sense of walking by somebody who we now know is dead. Not passed out drunk, didn't have a seizure, didn't fall and bump their head, but attacked brutally, and her feet are facing the door, and a roommate has passed her. And we learned that here recently, that Dylan saw her there, but she didn't go check on her to see why she was lying on the floor.
And upon finding the two girls on the third floor, Kaylee and Maddie, this is what the officer who responded is quoted as saying. Kaylee and Madison were covered by a pink blanket, which was covered in blood. There was a large pool of blood near Kaylee's midsection. Madison appeared to be laying up against Kaylee. Madison had what appeared to be wounds to her forearm and hands. Madison had a gash under her right eye, which appeared to go from the corner of her eye to her nose. Kaylee was unrecognizable, as her facial structure was extremely damaged. This is where I bring in my colleague Brian Enton, who's probably had a far more difficult day than I have in following these details, and that's because he was there. He's in Idaho, and he was in the courtroom for all of it today. There's so much information coming out today, Brian. I'm trying to give the newest first, and I thought that you and I would lead the show with the incredible victims' impact statements and what happened in that courtroom today. But let's talk a little bit about what came out tonight, this investigative product. You've been learning a lot more about how all four of these kids died. Can you take me through it?
Yeah, I mean, what an emotional day. And then all of a sudden the document dump began. They didn't waste any time. Moscow police has been releasing all sorts of documents. We've got a team like frantically going through them. You mentioned the autopsy reports. Let's start there. I'm going to read through these, and it's difficult to talk about. I mean, like what you just said about Kaylee and how many times they were stabbed. It's awful. But let me read you through what we know. I'll start with Ethan Chapin. This is from his autopsy report. Fatal stab wound under left clavicle, severed his subclavin vein and subclavin artery, jugular vein severed, only had sharp force injuries, wounds caused by sharp object like knife, xanthocronodal, one laceration on her right lung, 2 lacerations in her heart. She had 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive. So we knew that Kaylee fought back, but now 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive with Xana. Only had sharp force injuries. Madison Mogan, left lung laceration, liver laceration, only had sharp force injuries. And then Kaylee Gonzalez, there was a left lung laceration, a liver laceration. Think about what was going on here. 2 subdural bleeds. Stab behind her clavicle, cut her subclavicle vein and artery, sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, so, suffocated, blunt force injuries. This is kind of where the question about the second weapon has come in. And then 20 plus stab wounds on Kaylee Gonzalez.
Now, he's speaking about Kaylee's injuries, asphyxial injuries. I'm assuming that is to the throat, which caused this young lady to suffocate on her own blood. That's a lot to digest. That's why I had made a comment in my live yesterday. Feel free to check out the live from Wednesday, that 12 members of the jury and the family would have to hear all of this information, description from the medical examiner, any other expert witness to describe, the injuries, And you'd have to take that out of the courtroom home with you. And that's not including visual aid, which would be photographs of the victims lying deceased. I want people to think about that. Because the officers wanted a trial, but I don't think you really get the gist of what the trial would have consisted of. Because it's more than just giving a statement at the end directed towards Mr. Kohberger, how you feel about him, your kids, so on and so forth. You would have to sit in that courtroom day for day listening to the information from the medical examiner, the authorities, pictures of the crime scene, and then carrying that information back into the world with you. And I don't know if some people would be strong enough to hold on to that. Because you always have to think about seeing an image. Sometimes you can't get it out of your head. Sometimes it takes a while to get it out of your head. And I can say that with the passing of my mother, she suffered before, going into what I would say an induced state of breast cancer, metastatic breast cancer. But what I saw visually at the end, with the nurse coming in and wanting to clean her up and all that, it took a while for that image to get out of my head. You understand what I'm saying? So when I think of that image, which would not be considered the same as the image of how these children ended up, I don't think I could have handled seeing any of the images of these kids and thinking that was not going to be carried with me when I left out of the courtroom. Because that's what people don't understand about seeing people in a devastating state. That's your last image of them. In the hospital room, funeral parlor, however. And the mind is a very tricky organ. You can hold on to those images for some time. You hear people say that, just like being in a car accident. You replay the accident over and over and over and over, the impact of the accident. I had that happen to me once in a car wreck. It played and played and played and played to where I couldn't even think to look at nothing and focus on anything, because that's all I would see in front of my eyes was the impact of the truck hitting my car. So see, I don't really think these people understand. Had they sat in that courtroom listening to all of this information and watching these photographs looking, you will be taking that out with you. And that's what you would be seeing play like a video recorder in your mind. And I don't think you want to look at that every day in your mind. As they called it with this visual snow for Mr. Kohberger, that's what that would have been like. You could be walking, talking, but all you are looking at in life are those pictures of those deceased people. And they were brutally murdered, as you hear in this commentary.
Yeah, well, Brian, that might make a little more sense as to why we're learning also that some of the colleagues at Washington State University said they saw Brian Kohberger with injuries on his knuckles and scratch marks, what seemed like scratch marks on his face. So this makes a lot more sense. There was a pitched fight, at least on the third floor, and it appeared on the second floor as well with Xana. I also have not seen anything yet, and I just want to correct some of the reporting that's out there. I have not seen any reporting that there was carving into, Ethan Chapin's leg. That was something that made a huge headline, and it was very distressing to hear it. It just says these sharp injuries, but who knows if we'll see more. Can I ask you all?
So this is why you have to be very careful in listening to he said, she said. I say this all the time, especially about true crime. The very reason why I don't really like talking about true crime, because people believe anything that they hear. So now you hear there was no carving in this young man's leg. Who started that rumor and put that out? You were wrong for that. Foul and vile. Same thing with the sister mentioning during her statement to Mr. Kohberger about a second knife. There was no second knife used, allegedly. There's no mentioning of a second knife in these documents. Only the one K-bar knife. Where she got that information from, I don't know. But you see, we carried it right out and mentioned it. I mentioned it yesterday during the live. Was there a second weapon used? You hear in this commentary there was no second weapon. There was no carving of Mr. Ethan's leg. Possibly he's being stabbed. He's fighting for his life. The man is stabbing him wherever. Perhaps the man was, Ethan was kicking him. He's stabbing his leg. Both are tall men. So you're trying to fight and ward off a person who is stabbing you. So you're using your arms, your legs, your weight to try to get this person off of you. Once again, you cannot believe everything you hear. This is why this was a problem with this case, like so many other cases, why they wanted gag orders for this very reason. Rumors and gossip and straight out lies about the victims. This is the one thing you don't want put out, are untruths. He said, she said. You're talking about dead people. And it's one thing to gossip about people who are living, but you're talking about dead people. You don't want lies put out about the state of the bodies, what was seen, heard. You want the truth. And I don't think you're really going to get the truth, especially when it comes to Mr. Kohberger. Crime scene, perhaps, but not anything about who he is. I don't think anybody knows who Mr. Kohberger is. That's obvious. The fact he's wiped data clean, that means, yeah, he didn't want any connection to these girls the house found. Now, his phone pinged there, which is what would be the connection to King Road. They've got him there at least 14 times, so they know he's been there. Car seen on CCTV footage, so that's been proven. But why and how he chose them, that's a whole nother ballgame. And you're going to see later in this commentary, he was looking at other women. And I also mentioned that in my commentary the past 2.5 years. That I don't doubt that Mr. Kohberger was eyeing other women. And I also remember that Xana's sister also attended Washington State, where Kohberger was a student at the time. For all we know, he was watching her sister, may have made a connection. This is why I keep saying you have to be careful what you post to social media, your pictures, your friends, because he may have been looking at all of these girls' profiles, their pictures, seeing who they talked to, who their friends of friends were. And you can see a lot of this information through Facebook, friends of friends, if they have an open page. And he could have realized, oh, she's got a sister. She goes to school here with me. For all we know, he could have been watching that sister, Xana Coronato's sister. I mean, it's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched at all. Mr. Kohberger was also looking at other students where he attended. University, Washington State. And that to me is scary as hell. So nobody can in their right mind think, well, it's just these 4. Oh no. He was looking at other females because he had photographs of other students on his phone from Washington State.
So about the neighbor and Bethany both telling the police about a strange explosive sound, like a firework. What can you tell us about that?
That's about all we know. And it's the first, I mean, there's little things that we've heard here and there. I had never heard this before until this came out in the documents that that Bethany and the neighbor both heard something that sounded like a firework. I've been trying to think of what that is. You might have a better idea than me. I have no idea. I mean, maybe something from the car speeding away. That's the best that I could think of.
Or something fell over in the house on a hard surface and it sounded like it broke. I mean, it is a really tough one to put together, but they both heard it. A neighbor heard it and Bethany heard it. Okay, the other information that Kohberger's job looked like it was in trouble. They had some screenshots. The police officers had screenshots from text messages between 2 of the Washington State University professors.
Yeah, and we heard rumblings that he had issues, obviously, when he was the TA there, and issues with students and other professors, and he wasn't keeping his job. I want to read you this text message, though. This is what, we've never seen this before. This is one professor writing this to another professor. We need to do an intervention with Kohberger. She's going to try to gather information, but apparently he's offended several of our female students, which again goes back to some of our reporting from early on when we were at the school talking to people, that he had issues with the female students.
Right, and also in those documents, apparently a female student at his college, WSU, said that she saw photos of herself and of her friends on his phone on the Dateline documentary. So they didn't even know that they were on his phone until they saw the Dateline documentary. But she says she said Brian Kohberger used to sit close to her in class when he showed up for class, often late. Let me move to.
Let's talk about that for a second. How did where did he get the photographs from? Social media, or did he take pictures of her at the school? What are we saying here? The fact that the information was released to Dateline, that's possibly what all the hoopla was about a month or so ago with Miss Annie Taylor and the District Attorney's Office of information being released to Dateline. That's possibly some of the information that Annie Taylor did not want out, which shows a pattern that he is a stalker. Because now you're talking about different people, different females. This is bad, as I said. How did Kohberger get the pictures? Sitting close to the young ladies. So was he taking pictures of her while sitting, behind her in class, coming in late? Was he deliberately coming in late to take photographs of the said students? You have to remember he was meticulous in what he did, although he messed up. That's how he got caught, because we live in a digital world now. It's very hard to do anything without being seen on some type of CCTV footage. You leave a blueprint. It's just America. People have cameras, doorbell cameras, security cameras. It's just the way it is. He effed up. He thought he hadn't, but he had. When he kept going out there to their house, as soon as he got to Washington State, which is very bizarre to me, to be going to a school to be a doctoral program, and you spending all your free time stalking some kids 15 minutes away in an entirely different jurisdiction, different town. It's very bizarre. And you're going to learn that too about what the inmates have to say about his habits. He's a night owl. So even in jail, he's doing the same thing. He's up all night, can't sleep, naps during the day. Creature of habit. Old habits die hard. How many students was he stalking? Washington State to Moscow, Idaho, and any other place in between. I won't doubt he was doing the same in Pennsylvania. Stay woke. He knew how to wipe his devices clean because he's a smart fellow and he's intuitive. And we have tutorials to teach you how to do just about anything. Ask YouTube. YouTube will teach you how to do any damn thing. Okay? From skydiving to wiping your devices clean. So he learned how to do that. That's why they're saying authorities don't have a motive to who the target was. Possibly there was a target, but you're not going to know unless Kohberger decides to tell the truth. And I doubt that he told anyone he had a target, because we don't know that he had any friends or confided in anyone his emotions, deviant behavior, ideologies. Who released the information about these girls' photos? That's what I'd like to know. Because these kids might want to sue. You put my information out here on Dateline, you had no right, when I didn't even know he had photographs of me. And I get that. I'd be pissed off too. Because that's the wrong place to find out anything about yourself, is on a news broadcast. Especially when you know you haven't committed a crime, you haven't been interrogated for a crime, involvement in a crime, and then you're watching Dateline or you hear word of mouth, hey, they mentioned your name on Dateline. And you're looking like, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, that Kohberger guy, he had pictures of you on his phone. I haven't seen the special. I'll have to try to find it and watch it. But I think I'd be very pissed off. I'd be pissed off at whoever put the information out there. Because you had no right to put it out there without my consent.
The stalking issue, because we all assumed that the investigators would tell us that Brian Kohberger stalked one or more of these kids at 1122 King Road, but it turns out he just might be bizarre. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. There's reports that there were people in the woods, that the kids at 1122 saw strange figures in the woods, that Murphy the dog would go running to the woods and wouldn't come back quite often. But then there's this discussion about a woman who talked to the police about being matched with Kohberger on Tinder.
Yeah, and this was kind of crazy. You're right, though. We don't have any proof from police that he was stalking them. He may have been, but the police never had any evidence. We asked specifically about that today. But this is the woman who matched with him on Tinder, and I'm going to read this because I want to get it right. She says that she was talking about horror movies with Kohberger. He asked her what she thought would be the worst way to die, and she said with a knife. And then Kohberger asked her to do something to the effect of, he said something like a K-bar, which we all know what that means. I mean, K-bar knife is the knife he used to kill these 4 kids. The knife sheath they found in the house. She said she didn't know what that was. She had to Google it. She stopped talking to him because he weirded her out, which, yep.
Oh my goodness. When did Kohberger match with this young lady on Tinder? Pennsylvania or Washington State? What's the proximity of the timeline? She had to Google what a K-bar knife was. Now she knows. Weirded out, stop talking to Mr. Kohberger. See, Kohberger is used to asking people questions because that's all he's done in his studies, talking to criminals, writing papers, thesis. So that's all he knows to do, is ask questions. And yes, that would strike a person strange unless they're a cuckoo bird like him. I think I would ask, why are you asking me that? But sometimes you can answer a question and not really think at the time, why am I answering this question? But at some point she realized, okay, I shouldn't be answering these questions. What would be a horrible way to die? Anyway, anyhow. Okay, come on, let's keep it real. So she stupidly answers, getting stabbed to death. Oh, with a K-bar knife? Oh, I don't know what that is. Did he describe to her what a K-bar knife is? Curious. This is so ridiculous to me. Talking about horror movies, and it ends up into the realm of K-bar knives, because that's his thought process. Probably still his thought process. He's probably still dreaming and fantasizing about murdering young women, because he's done this for some time. How long? I don't know. When he became detached from reality, I don't know. But as it was said in court by, I believe, Kaylee's sister, you've been this lonely vessel for some time. Lonely, miserable person, angry person. Of course. As I said in my live yesterday, Kohberger has been angrier longer than you all have been angry at him for unaliving your loved ones. He's been carrying this bitterness around probably since childhood. Murderous intentions since childhood, high school, who knows? Long before you even knew he existed. So his rage and hate is much deeper, because he's the one, the catalyst of this destruction that he's caused these people. He's a bitter bitch. That's all. And when you look at his face in these photographs, photo stills, and videos of the court appearance yesterday, you see a very gauntlet, pale white man who is detached from the world. Eyes cold, beady eyes, staring into the abyss. He is the abyss. Kohberger is far removed. I find it interesting that his family was there in court. Did not know that. And they had to be just as mortified sitting there looking at this thing that they spawn into the world. As I mentioned that in my commentary yesterday, imagine giving birth and having hope and feeling this is the light of the world that you're bringing into the earth You have dreams and hopes for your child, that there'll be somebody productive in life. And this is what you spawn: a stalker, murderer, who has done nothing but manipulate the court system alongside his attorneys to later bamboozle everybody with a plea. It's code. I won't doubt that he did it on purpose. I don't put nothing past Mr. Kohberger or Annie Taylor and her dream team. Let's just dick the court around for years and then poof, voila. I won't doubt even Annie got tired of dealing with her. This is pointless. It's going nowhere. I've got another death penalty case I need to work on. You look at her, she looks just as detached as Kohberger, sitting there with her hair fried, bleach blonde, ends broke off, looking a hot damn mess. Everybody sitting at the table looks just as crazy as Kohberger. I'm sitting here looking at the photograph right now on my TV screen. They all look like they just got thrown in the ocean, paddling around trying to get to safety. And he's sitting there looking at them. Yep, I took you down with me. Because that's been his goal all along, is to take as many people down with him. And that's what he did.
I mean, I think that would weird anybody out. And I can only imagine what she's thinking now, knowing all the details of everything that went down.
Well, and you know, honestly, who knows? Who knows if he stalked her, if he was thinking about her as a target before he ultimately chose these kids at 1122 King. There was also some investigation that went on at the Latah County Jail. They started asking other inmates there questions about their fellow inmate, and a guy who I guess had one of the cells close by in Latah from August 24 to September 24. He had some observations. What did the police officers reveal today about that?
Yeah, so the inmate said that Kohberger, and I'm going to read this again because this is from the police report, said that Kohberger was the smartest person he encountered in jail, but then he became annoying. Kohberger would wash his hands dozens of times a day. You know, he's a germaphobe, so that's not a shock. Spent an hour in the shower. Said Kohberger would be up all night. He could hear Kohberger moving around at night, and says that Kohberger would take a nap during the day. And, you know, it's interesting that they went back and talked to some of these inmates, because when I was in the prison yesterday, you mentioned at the top of the show they've now moved Kohberger into the Idaho prison system. What they told me yesterday is they are going to go through all of the electronic communications of prisoners in the system that he may be around to see who has been talking about him. And that's how they're going to determine what block he may go into, even though he's likely going to be in isolation, which I found very interesting. They can actually search through all of the communication that the prisoners have been having with family and such and see who seems to be the most interested over.
So fascinating. And we learned today that all of the conversations that Brian Kohberger had on his tablets and phones in both Ada County and Latah County, it's up to the sheriffs in those two counties as to whether they will release those communications to the public. We're hoping maybe they will, but that's in the future. Don't go anywhere, Brandon. I've got you for the whole hour. This is a special report tonight on the sentencing of Brian Kohberger. We thought we were going to learn a lot. And the biggest thing we learned is how little the investigators actually knew about Kohberger and his connection to these kids. So what about Papa Roger? What about him? I thought for sure they would know that Kohberger was Papa Roger. They gave us their answer today about that. And what about social media? How connected was he to the 4 victims or the 6 people in that house that night? They gave us the answer to that as well. All of these answers plus continuing mysteries coming up next.
So no connection to these women, but could it be that he wiped his devices clean and that's why they don't have anything? Did he have separate phones, iPads, where he may have communicated? We heard that he had liked some of the girls' photographs, so that came from the family, if I'm not mistaken, the consultants, that he liked some of the photographs of the girls, Maddie or whomever. So they had access to, I guess, the girls' phones to see who was liking their pictures, you know, going back in time. But we now hear authorities don't have anything to say, I guess, if he talked, messaged, liked a picture, so on and so forth. Very interesting information. Very interesting. So that means the family would have to what? Show screenshots to show a Kohberger profile, put a heart, thumbs up, whatever, on one of the girls' pictures, videos, whatsoever. Very bizarre.
At his sentencing today, he did. 3 words. I respectfully decline. That's that. You can't compel him to do it. The law says so. However, after this hearing, the police and prosecutors held a news conference and dropped bombshell after bombshell. And one that hit me hard was that Brian Kohberger was not Papa Roger. At least their investigation did not show him to be. And if you're wondering who was Papa Roger, it was the online account that seemed to know a lot of information about this case before it became public, like the knife, a K-bar knife sheath being left behind at the murder scene, where the killer parked, and about that white car, nothing to see here. Here's the information as we heard it during that press conference about.
So who is Papa Roger? Since you're going to tell us it wasn't Kohberger, if it wasn't Kohberger, then who is the person? Is it law enforcement? Somebody that had access to authority records? Somebody working at the courthouse? Would you be surprised how many people work at the courthouse? People who have knowledge of, paperwork. So it's somebody that knows something, or it's just somebody that's lucky in guessing about a K-bar knife. Just assumed it was a K-bar knife. I don't know. Who is Papa Roger? Papa Roger, are you going to come forward and tell us who you are and how you had this information, or you just guessing? Curious.
The Papa Roger account, take a look.
There was a social media account that surfaced that has long had speculation that it was Brian Kohberger. Can you talk at all about the Papa Roger potential connection, if any?
Right, there was no connection. There wasn't at all. We looked into every bit of it. We took a deep dive into it. We researched it. It was not.
They said it was not. I'm still wondering if he just wiped his devices so clean they did not see it, but they seemed pretty definitive. We asked Alina Smith, who was the moderator of the University of Idaho case discussion group on Facebook, where this Papa Roger seemed to ply his trade a lot, and Alina told us she's not so sure either. Take a look.
My opinion is that there's still something to it, and perhaps we know for a fact that Brian had other phones, he had multiple phones, and he was on several different social media sites using a lot of different handles. So this is right up his alley.
I want to bring Brian Ensign back into the fold here. Brian, in that...
Before they finish their commentary, how many devices did Kohberger have all together? That's computers, laptops, cell phones. How many cell phones did he have? Was he pretending to be different people on date sites, social media pages, such as Reddit, Twitter, all those type of things? Was he using his actual photograph? Was he just using, a picture emoji of a figure? I don't know. And then he's macabre, so I could see him pretending to use a fake name on a profile just to get a row out of people with crazy commentary, macabre commentary, because this is what people do who are ill, sociopaths, psychopaths. They like to emulate other people, pretend to be other people, do and say things to get people worked up, scare people. He's that guy who probably would walk around hiding in a closet with a mask on and jump out. Still childlike behavior. Fright night. I won't doubt it. How many devices did Kohberger have? How many devices were confiscated at the time of his arrest? What was confiscated from the apartment in Washington and also the house in Pennsylvania? We learned he had little furniture in his home, in his apartment. So I'd like to know what all did they find. Basically nothing from what they're saying. So he possibly got rid of things. The devices, the pictures, He knew how to wipe down the devices, wipe them clean, throw away phones, burner phones. That's probably what he was taking pictures of the girls with, burner phones. Very creepy.
Press conference. It was just like an avalanche of information that was so overwhelming, not the least of which was the revelation that there was no connection found between Brian Kohberger and these 4 kids, or even the 6 kids, the 4 who died and the 2 who survived. It was just kind of bewildering to think it doesn't exist. I'm skeptical, and I don't know how many other people there are skeptical. There's no connection.
Yeah, I mean, this press conference was really something, Ashley. You would have had a field day because we haven't been able to talk to the police in 2.5 years. And kudos to them. I mean, they took a lot of questions, almost all of the questions, and they seemed to answer them the best way they could, as openly as they could. But I was surprised that there's not much more there than what we already knew in the probable cause. There wasn't much more motive. And you mentioned there was always this thought that maybe there was some connection on social media. Maybe he had followed one of the girls on Instagram or something, or was, stalking them through social media, but they never found evidence of anything like that. Listen to what was said.
Was there any evidence that Kohberger was following the social media of any of the victims?
So, trust us, we wanted that to be the case. We've looked for a link, and we have not found one. Not one.
Yeah, through the entire investigation, I think that's something that we need, that you want, is to help to understand this and say, well, what's the connection? What was the link? And so we had every resource possible, and we worked that tirelessly, both from everything from his side, but all the victims and all the members of the house from their side. So we have never, to this date, found a single connection between him and any of the 4 victims or the 2 surviving roommates.
Yeah, those.
Okay, so this is bewildering, as Banfield said. So the family members are the ones who put that out, that he liked their photographs, Kaylee and or Maddie or both. Well, then what's the truth? Where did they get that information from? Because they're saying here there's no connection. So a connection is just what it is, a connection. If he liked a photograph, that would be a connection. He saw a photograph, a video, he liked it, commented, sent a friend request. We got information that he messaged one of the girls. So how is it that these people who are professionals, and I'm assuming it would be the FBI also involved, how is it that because the FBI has more technology than your local authorities, how is it that they don't have any connection? Because if they can go in the phone, the family, and see the kids' IG page, Facebook page, and see all the people who were friends with these people, followed them, liked the photograph, how is it that the police would say in turn, FBI, well, we don't have that same information? I'm confused. So who's telling the truth? Because all this information that came out about him following these girls on social media or liking a page or messaging one of them, that came from the Gonzaleses, from my understanding. And then that sister got up in court yesterday and said another weapon was used. So somebody is putting out some fake fraudulent information, or somebody don't have the accurate information. Who do you want to believe? Just saying. Who should we believe? Because I don't see the police having a reason to lie about a connection, non-connection. As you heard him say, we wanted there to be a connection. Of course they wanted there to be a connection, because you got to make sense to how did he find them. So now let's ask that question. How did Kohberger find these kids? He's been there 14 times. So that means you have proof of some sort to put him there. So that's what I'm assuming the connection would be, is the data from a phone. So make it make sense. How did you prove he's there 14 times, but you don't have a connection to how he found the kids to be there in the first place? This is some bullshit. Something's not adding up here. That's why I always tell people to listen to the information, because this is contradictory. You say he's been there 14 times. That's what we were told. Well, how do you know he's been there 14 times? If you can't now you tell us you don't have no connection to how the hell he found them. So he was what? Out one day at Costco, Walmart, coffee house, saw one of the girls and then what? Followed her home and then just started following her around town and then decided, okay, I'm gonna start going to King Road, make it make sense. Because if he didn't find the girls on social media, the only other way he found them was either through a leaflet, booklet of the school, or he found them out in public. Meaning, he saw them somewhere between Washington State and Idaho University.
For the two main detectives, they had the FBI helping, scouring all of social media, but no connection actually.
It's shocking. They also said that they don't think there was any target, or at least they don't know if one of the people in the house was actually targeted, or who, if one was, might have been the target. But they did talk about the house itself being a plan. Try to clear that up, because I was slightly confused by it.
Yeah, so they don't know who the target was. If there's a reason that he went in there and was going after one person, they just don't know. Obviously, they don't know motive, but they did say, they didn't have any evidence to back it up, but they said they believed the house was the target, and then sort of explained it as, you know, maybe someone was driving around in that area, it was an easy house to get into, saw the sliding glass door in the back, that may have been the reason that he chose that house. But again, didn't seem to know for sure. Take a listen.
Wow.
There was a reason that this particular house was chosen. What that reason is, we don't know. We don't know who the target was, and we're not going to speculate on that up here today. But we can tell you that for whatever reason, Mr. Kohberger chose that residence. Perhaps it's the location, layout, we don't know. But that's, to the best of my knowledge, that's what that statement likely led to.
I mean, look, like so many of us, I wanted more info. I thought that we would leave this getting a little bit more, but most of the answers were kind of like that, and they were just being honest. I mean, they really don't know.
And is all of that because it doesn't exist, or is it because he was so adept at wiping his electronics using sophisticated techniques?
Yes, and that's where the FBI comes in again. They found very little on the computers. Listen to what they said.
Was there any evidence that he had tried to wipe anything from his phone, software-wise?
We had the world's foremost experts on this look into it, and there was evidence that he had used software to wipe many of his devices relatively effectively, so there wasn't much evidence obtained after that.
So proof that Kohberger did wipe down his devices, finally. So that means it's hidden how he came to find the Idaho 4 students. And the fact that the young lady said she heard her pictures were on Dateline, were on his phone, that means he had a pattern of taking pictures of people. Because why would he have pictures of someone on his phone from his class that he's not friends with? He's not talking to her, he's not dating her, they don't have any type of connection. Why would her pictures be on his phone? So if he did it to these girls at Washington State, he did it to these kids. What would be the difference? There wouldn't be. And once again, who is the person that put out the information about these girls' pictures being on his phone? Who put that out to Dateline? And if they saw their pictures, I'm confused about all of this. This is something ain't right. And what it is, I don't know. It's all something off. I guess he was clever. Perhaps this is the last hurrah for Mr. Kohberger. Okay, you caught me, but you ain't got nothing. I'm not talking. I didn't give a statement. I'll have the last laugh. I'm having the last laugh. You're trying to figure out a motive. You're trying to figure out who's the target. You don't know. I ain't gonna tell you. I don't give a fuck. Stop asking. That's why I kept telling everybody. You keep talking about a motive. What difference does it make? But we're humans. We are curious. But to the killer, they're looking at it as, hey, I did it because I could. Because no matter what the motive is, it's a window of opportunity. Whether it was the house, the location, a girl, a guy. In the end, it doesn't matter because he didn't have no right to go in there. That's the point. That's the point. But humans want to know why. You may never know why. If Kohberger decides to never talk, you'll be sitting up beating your head for 50 years trying to figure out why he chose these kids, that house. He's an angry human being. I don't really think it matters. Obviously, he didn't like women. He was about to have, he was having issues with students at the school. Professors are meeting up to talk about this issue with him. We did learn he lost his position. So Kohberger was spiraling out of control at this university. He just got there, and already months in, he's already lost his position. Talking above everyone, over everyone, talking down to people, giving harsh grades to females. He didn't like females, obviously. Angry. I'm not the chosen one. They don't like me. I'll show them. And now, even in the end, in his mind, he feels like he still has won because nobody knows anything. Oh, he knew exactly what he was doing. And I'm sure he's saying, damn, I'm caught, but they don't know what they want to know. So he feels vindicated. You can believe that.
And I was thinking, Ashley, today, obviously he's guilty. He did it. He's an awful murderer. And the K-bar knife, the DNA, there's so much evidence. But I was wondering if this went to trial, how were they going to explain some of these things to the jury in terms of motive? That could have been an issue. Maybe they knew that was an issue. Because I think jurors may have had questions about some of these things.
Right, and often in murder cases, they don't know motive, and prosecutors do not have to prove a motive. They don't even have to offer a motive, and they will tell you in summation they don't have to have the motive, but it is helpful if they have a motive. Something else that was a bit confounding today, Olivia Gonzalez, Kaylee's older sister, gave just a blistering victim's impact statement. It was so effective. And then she mentioned something about a second murder weapon. She said, she looked right at Brian Kohberger and said, what was the second weapon you used on my sister? And then Steve Gonzalez mentioned it outside as well. And yet the police did not clear that up for us.
Yeah, and I think they were talking about that, the Gonzalez's, because of those injuries, the extensive injuries that we laid out for everybody now that we have the autopsy report. But yeah, that was one of the first things I asked police about in the press conference.
Is it possible that there was a second murder weapon used, not just the knife?
Is it possible? All the evidence shows and tells us that he used a knife, a K-bar knife, and that's the weapon we believe was used to commit all the murders.
So basically, he said, is it possible? But they believe that it was only a knife. We'll have to talk to the Gonzalez's a little bit more about what they may have learned. But the police today believe it was just a knife.
Well, why do they think a second weapon was used? Was a weapon broke off in one of the victims? We have not heard that. Because if one weapon was broke off, let's say in one of the girls, on the top floor, third floor, then that means, yes, he would have to get another weapon to finish off the other victims. But we have not heard that. So why would the Gonzalez's believe there were two knives used? Because what? Her face was disfigured? Well, he's using a very large knife. It would not take much to disfigure a person with a large weapon. The person is using force, their intent. He's angry. He's forceful. He's bigger than the victims. Come on, just use discretion. He didn't use a small knife to unalive these kids. Usually when people use smaller knives, perhaps, yes, they break off in the victim and the person has to go back and get another weapon to finish the victim off. But we have not heard that any other weapon was used, like a bat or rope or gun. So we're only assuming one weapon was used. It's very weird information. And this goes into the he said and the she said, which is not good, because you don't know anything no more than what law enforcement is showing us and telling us. So all this extra stuff I can do without. I'm just keeping it real. Because this is the last thing you want, or to be putting out lies. Yeah, I'm going to say lies about dead people. If you don't know that there's a second weapon, don't mention it. Don't say that somebody was carved up. You know, don't put stuff out that's not true, that you don't have no information. This has to be coming from somebody who dealt with this case, that's putting this stuff out and told Steve this type of nonsense. And it's not good. Because then it makes these law officials look like they don't know their job. Because now they have to be, it has to be law enforcement against law enforcement. These people telling us one thing, but then somebody's been whispering in Mr. Gonzalez's ear about something else. That's a bad look. And I won't doubt that somebody's probably going to end up getting fired from all this Dateline nonsense and all this stuff about a second weapon and carving up. They're going to look into all of that. They're going to look into everybody that worked the case, from the lawyers to law enforcement to EMTs, the people worked at the hospital, medical examiner. Somebody has been talking and putting out this frivolous information that's not true. Or if it is true, why would authorities now in a press conference say we don't have any information to that allegation? It's bad.
Yeah, they're looking for a little space tonight. Fully understandable. Brian, don't go anywhere. Thank you. I just mentioned Olivia and the unbelievable and the eloquent address that she gave in court today. Let me tell you, she was facing off and she put Brian Kohberger in his place. Take a look.
I'm gonna stop there. True crime is, it's dirty. That's why I don't want no parts of it. I'm just gonna be truthful. I'm only bringing these updates because it's information I've covered from years ago, and I like to finish what I start. But I feel like this may be a blessing that this did not go to trial, because what you're hearing now, as Brian is saying, imagine trying to give this information to 12 members of the jury. They want a motive. They want a motive. Just like with a body, it's the same thing. They always want a body. They always want a weapon, but it's not reality. Sometimes you don't get a weapon. You don't get the clothes. You don't get the data. You don't get a motive. And as they said, the prosecution does not have to give a motive. They have to prove their case, but they don't have to have a motive. And obviously, law enforcement has told you he wiped his devices clean. This is some sick SHIT. And as I said in my commentary yesterday, there's another Kohberger, in the making, in the womb of a woman, and also walking around. Worst case of murders, Idaho history. I guess so. Everyone's still trying to figure out why. As I said, put yourself in Mr. Kohberger's shoes. He's saying to you, why not? I did it because I could. You're just going to beat yourselves up trying to figure out why I killed these kids. Doesn't matter why I did it. I did it. And I'm not going to tell you. And if I decide to tell you, you'll have to wait when I decide to choose who I want to tell my truth to. And even then, you won't even know if it's the truth or not, because he'll play mind games to get the 5 minutes of fame and time away from sitting around inmates and in a cell, dick around whoever is interviewing him, wasting their time. This is what psychopaths, sociopaths do. They play mind games. This is a sick story. And as I said, there will be another one. May not be in Idaho, but it'll be somewhere else. And every day you see sickness and macabre behavior exacted by civilians, and everyone's still asking why. Well, why pick up a person on a date site and take them out on a date knowing you're going to kill them? Chop them up and spread their body parts around on a lake. Why do that? Why kill your wife, kill your kids, kill your family? Because things aren't going your way. You owe money. You're in debt. You're in love with somebody else. You've been caught cheating. Why? Why kill your kid? Why kill your baby? Why kill your newborn? Why kill your spouse? Why kill your boyfriend? Why kill your mate? Why kill the person who left you, divorced you? Why? Everybody wants to know why. They did it because they could. That's why. Whether they knew the victim, they didn't know the victim. And I think that's where people have a problem. Oh, I think I know why he did it, because he knows her. But I don't get it because he don't know her and them. Oh, I know why he killed the ex-wife, why he killed the new wife, the girlfriend. But I don't understand why he killed 4 kids in Idaho. He didn't know them. Why did he kill them? Well, he did it because he could. He didn't need a reason, explanation. You need a reason. He didn't need a reason. And I do believe if he had not been caught, he would have done it again. The reason why he had photographs of other women on his phone. I'm going to get all the retribution I can while I can. Reason why he was searching for another replacement knife. I got to get back what I got rid of, because I'm definitely going to go back and do this again. He got an ultimate high rush by killing 4 people. Hell yeah, Kohberger was going to go back and do it again. But the grace of God, he was apprehended. Thank you, Jesus. I'm going to stop here. This information is in the queue if you want to check it out to finish the last few minutes of it. You don't know people. And this case is exemplary of not knowing people. Whether you like the person, don't like their disposition, nobody knew Brian Kohberger. I think even in his worst moment of him being on drugs, being a misfit, I don't think his parents thought that he would be out here hacking up people. Awkward maybe, distant, but not a killer. Who would think their child would become a killer? But then the flip side could be they saw signs of their child and may have thought this kid's going to end up being a murderer. I don't know. But will they tell that to the public? Oh yeah, I thought he was going to be a killer. I knew this day was coming. I knew something bad was going to happen with our son. We just didn't know when and where, who, how many. And that'll be even more disturbing. But as we have learned in life, you can warn the masses. Beware of my son. Beware of this guy, this lady. They're dangerous. But nobody can stop a person from roaming around. We see this all the time with people who get in trouble with the law and they're violent. Eventually they get a bond, they get time served, and they're free to walk around. And you can't monitor them. They're not on an ankle bracelet. They're free to roam. So they're free to go right back out here and assault people, sexual assault, manipulate, con, bamboozle, hurt, beat up, whatsoever. May get caught, may not. And it just starts the process all over again, trying to find them, apprehend them, take them to court, hearing. It's just a bunch of bull. And a lot of people feel like criminals have more rights. But the flip side of that is, what if you have the wrong person? Do you want somebody going down for something and they didn't commit the crime? So this is why there are laws and rights of people who are arrested. That's why you are allotted a chance to get a bond, a hearing, judicial diversion, Alfred plea, give a plea, no plea. That's why you have rights, whether you committed the crime or not. When you look at these, look at the videos of Mr. Kohberger, that's a dead man sitting there, literally. I said that to myself today. This is a dead man walking. Sadly, he's not the dead man walking that's going to be executed at some point because he gave a plea and the state took it. But Brian is dead inside, a living, breathing creature who is dead on the inside. He's a stuffed bird of cotton, straw. There's nothing there. Actual organs, but he's a stuffed bird. He's empty. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his demeanor in court. The fact that he did not want to speak, that's his last feat. I'm not going to tell these people a damn thing. I don't owe you nothing. I don't care about you coming in this court, reading me, calling me a coward, stupid, dumb, sit up straight. Kohberger don't care about none of that. I've listened to these people speak, and I was just sitting here yesterday like, they don't get it. He don't care. He could care less what you think of him. Why do you think people keep doing these type of crimes? Even if it's not murder, just hurting people in general. I don't care if it's lying, manipulating, conning. They don't care. That's Brian Kohberger. He gives two shits about your opinion, what you think of him, how he was raised, what he did at Washington State, stalking the kids, whatever you think he did, he doesn't care. The very reason why he didn't speak in court, he was not about to give you what you want. That's why he wiped those devices clean. You think you're getting ready to figure this out. You're not. You are only going to figure it out when I decide to tell you why and how I chose those kids. And it could be, he don't know. You're entitled to your opinion. I just did it because I felt like it. I'm mad, I'm angry. It was going to be somebody. And I think people need to understand that if it was not the four, it was going to be someone in Idaho, Washington State, wherever he decided to tread his 2 feet. Somebody was going to end up unalive. So if it wasn't these 4 kids, it was going to be somebody's kid. And that's what people need to understand about a sociopath and a psychopath. You're questioning why my child, my friend, as the scripture would say, you know, why not you? And I know that sounds cold. The pastor once said on TV, why not you? Who are you to be special, to be exempt from being hurt? You're not special. Talks about that with Jesus Christ dying on the cross for our sins, for those of you who are Christians. They didn't care about my son when they nailed him to the cross. They didn't know him. And he died for your sins. So the pastor would say to us as civilians, who are you to cry about suffering? And I know that may seem cruel to some of you under the circumstances of how these children died, but it is actuality. Who are we to act as if we are not to suffer? This is what you would call severe suffering, being bludgeoned to death, of course, cruel way to leave the earth. But we're human, and we were brought here possibly not knowing that we would indeed suffer. Of course, nobody wants to suffer like that. It's a cruel way to leave here, being bludgeoned to death in your own bed. But we are not exempt, is the point. And when you look at it through the eyes of a killer, he's saying the same. If it wasn't going to be these four, I was going to kill someone. So somebody was going to suffer irregardless. And yes, indeed, that is cruel. But I believe that. If it wasn't these four, it was going to be somebody. I'm just grateful there weren't more children unalived and that he was apprehended, Brian Kohberger. Will Kohberger ever speak to someone in an interview to tell us how and why he chose these four children, what he did with the weapon, the clothes, shoes, wiping the devices clean, if he had another target or targets, how he felt about getting caught, did he regret his actions, does he have remorse, would he have done it again had he not been caught, and how he came to be this monster. Does he blame anyone for being this monster? What does his family have to say about his plea and who their son is? Do they wish they never brought this thing to the earth? We will see. We also will see what law enforcement has pertaining to more documents pertaining to Mr. Kohberger and the Idaho 4. I will bring you an update when the information is released. But as the judge said, you know, this thing needs to be put to bed. And I do agree. Because the more we talk about him and mention his name, we're just really giving him what he has always wanted. And that is to be recognized, to be valued, discussed, put on a pedestal, however you want to word it. Every time they bring us something out to the news, bring any information about Kohberger, we're really giving him what he has always wanted, and that is recognition. And we know he doesn't deserve it, but inquiring minds want to know. But at the moment, he didn't leave a trail. So it's up to you to decide what you think is the truth and not the truth about how he chose his victims and who was the target or not a target. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Follow the Queen on the Newsbreak app. Follow me here on YouTube. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your kind words and prayers. I'm taking it one day at a time. God is good. And I will be back on the network to show myself in time once the wound has healed properly. But thank you so much. God bless all of you. Prayers to all the victims, family members, the community, the students, the University of Idaho, and also Washington State. This is scary because, as I said, there's another Kohberger forming in the womb, and there's another Kohberger walking around. Plus, plural, more. And as Banfield said, how do I know what to look for? You don't. You don't know what to look for. You just have to pray you don't end up like these kids. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to the Violent Cell.